Well, it looks like Nintendo isn't messing around anymore, and it shouldn't surprise anyone considering their stance and how aggressive they are when it comes to emulation or hacking the system, homebrew, their fan games. I mean, you name it, Nintendo, they live in the courtroom and they love to attack any of this stuff. And so, hearing about how the EULA or the End User License Agreement was updated with quite a bit of extra language to more or less tell you that if you decide to hack or soft mod your system, that they have the right to, well, update and then break your system. To me, it's not surprising, but it definitely has the internet going through it right now. But let's go over exactly what this means here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit that like button, subscribe if you're new. So as I mentioned, Nintendo, they love their courtroom scuffles. They're all about it. We've seen them take down emulators all over the place, specifically recently with the Switch itself. There were a few of them out there. Now they're all kind of gone, even as they have forks that release. Doesn't matter, Nintendo seems to get those taken down too, because then, of course, they're based off of things like Yuzu or Ryujinx, so it's just sort of a cascading effect, which is something that was kind of expected, and it makes sense based on the fact that they are, of course, launching the Switch 2. They wanted to try to get as much of this figured out by way of just making examples out of a bunch of different emulators or hacking tools or resellers as possible before they launch this system. But still, it's been noticed, this is over on Nintendo Life, they're citing GameFile. Stephen Totillo had a newsletter about this, but Nintendo updated the user agreement to crack down on emulation. So much so that it's mentioned, apparently, that they can brick your system if they found that you are in violation of this. Now, this is part of the End User License Agreement, the thing that most people scroll through very quickly and they never read any of it. And you have to accept it to then, I guess, use the system. So it does put you in a bit of a spot of, well, I didn't buy this system to say no to this and then just put it away. I'm gonna accept it and then move forward. So there's, of course, a lot of discussion when it comes to the End User License Agreement as to how enforceable it really is, but we'll get to that in a second. Now, the updated version, you can see, as Nintendo Life has the comparison here, much larger than what we originally had. The updated version says, without limitation, you agree that you may not A, publish, copy, modify, reverse engineer, lease, rent, decompile, it's an interesting one, disassemble, distribute, offer for sale, or create derivative works of any portion of the Nintendo account services. B, bypass, modify, decrypt, defeat, tamper with, or otherwise circumvent any of the functions or protections of the Nintendo account services, including through the use of any hardware or software that would cause Nintendo account services to operate other than in accordance with its documentation and intended use. C, obtain, install, or use any unauthorized copies of Nintendo account services, or exploit Nintendo account services in any manner other than to use them in accordance with the applicable documentation and intended use in each case, without Nintendo's written consent or expressed authorization, or unless otherwise expressly permitted by applicable law. You acknowledge that if you fail to comply with the foregoing restrictions, Nintendo may render the Nintendo account services and or applicable Nintendo device permanently unusable in whole or in part. So this, again, its language is very aggressive about the hardware you just bought. All right, so you look at that and you go, hold on a minute, I get that account services, this has gone on forever. Basically, since the advent, we'll say, on consoles of Xbox Live, there's always been some sort of language in there that's like, hey, you're signing up for this, all right, you're becoming part of this network that we have, you're paying us for it, and then in turn, you're getting the services. But if you, say, turn around and start hacking or cheating on the service to play, I don't know, on Xbox Live, Halo, all right, all of a sudden Warthogs are flying through the sky, or you have auto-aim in Call of Duty or something like that, we're just going to ban you from the service. And, I mean, there are Xbox 360s in droves, I'm sure, that are out there. I've come across a couple myself, just buying used ones, that the system itself has been completely banned from online use by its unique MAC address or so forth. And that's pretty common, right? So the idea of the system not being able to get online but still be usable is pretty standard. Most people would expect to play online with a hacked or modded system. Yeah, it'll probably then be banned from online use. The thing that's really getting to people right now is this Nintendo device permanently unusable in whole or in part, as in they could push an update and then completely brick your system, which I guess technically in some cases there are updates that can be pushed after you've maybe soft modded your system that could render it unusable. There are security measures I'm sure that can be added in or changed or something, and then all of a sudden your system that has custom firmware isn't necessarily booting up. But the idea that Nintendo could say, you know what, we're just going to go ahead and wipe out all of these systems that are modded in some way, that is to the point where you're like, okay, Nintendo, let's relax a little bit here. And it does make me wonder if that is even something that would necessarily hold up with a EULA. So again, the EULA itself, the end user license agreement, comes up all the time in conversation of, would this hold up in court? And I will say, as much as Nintendo loves to test themselves in court pretty much every week, it seems like now, this is something where I do wonder if the hardware you've bought, and let's say you do modify it, okay? I mean, it's your hardware, and you go online by accident. Are they really able to say, nope, that system will now just be a blank screen when you try to turn it on because we're going to brick it? I don't know if that is something that necessarily would hold up on their end. The idea of them banning you, though, yeah, that's proven to be like correct. It's something that happens, again, a lot. But the thing with these end user license agreements, they come under fire because of how overreaching a lot of the language is pretty much across the board, and the fact that none of us really read through any of it is something you look at as, okay, would anyone really take this to court? That's usually what the big company who writes these out and makes you press A over and over again, scroll all the way through, not reading it to get past it to use your nice new system or your nice new game, are relying on. It's like, yeah, but are you really going to go to court and spend tens of thousands of dollars to fight back against this when it's a system that's worth hundreds of dollars? Most people are not going to do that. They will say, you know what, that's really annoying. I still want to play the new Mario. I still want to play the new Gears game or the new God of War. I'll just go buy a new system. And actually, again, this is something that's been around for a bit. This is from 9 years ago on the 3DS. And this was during a system update that was pushed. It says after the system is updated, any existing or future unauthorized technical modification of the hardware or software of your system or the use of an unauthorized device in connection with your system will render the system permanently unplayable and result in removal of unauthorized content. So this has found its way into end user license agreements in the past from Nintendo specifically, like on the 3DS. And look, the 3DS has been blown wide open at this point. This is from 9 years ago, though, which, even 9 years ago, there was still discussion around the hacking scene. Nowhere near like what it is now. And in some way, Nintendo, of course, has it as a legacy system. So they've kind of moved on from it. But look, we know how Nintendo feels about hacking systems, modifying them, emulation, the whole thing. If they could get away with it, I'm sure they would love to have some sort of siren in the office that goes off whenever somebody hacks the system, and they can just ban it, shut it down, render it useless, be bricked completely, because they kind of just want you to play within the lane that they've set. But as we know with the internet, that's not really how it goes. And actually, I'm kind of glad that the internet will still push forward with a lot of this stuff, because when you see what is possible with these systems, especially when they're kind of in legacy status, like the 3DS, like the Wii U or the Wii, it is impressive stuff. The GameCube is like a whole other thing now. It's crazy all the stuff that's happened there, especially from a hardware perspective, but definitely with a software perspective with things like Swiss. So it would actually be a shame if the companies were able to really press this stuff and make it so people wouldn't even attempt to open it up further for the homebrew community, because there are some really cool breakthroughs that happen, and I just don't really see this being anything other than them overreaching a bit in the EULA and it really not amounting to much. But I guess technically they could do it and test it and see what happens. Maybe out of spite, someone would try to take it to court and go from there. But let me know what you guys think about this down below. You think this is more or less just kind of the scare tactic, overreaching EULA that most people will never read anyway, and most of us weren't even aware that these changes were made in the first place? Or you think Nintendo is ever actually serious about the idea of going out and bricking people's systems? Say if the Switch 2 was blown wide open, you imagine waking up like a year into your Switch 2's lifespan and a big mod comes out from a paperclip being in the side of it. You decide to try it out, and then the next day it's bricked. That'd be a wild day online. Thanks guys for watching, and I'll see you next time.